SPMRF New Delhi to come on to the stage. I also request Srimati Prema Rao, founder Vivekalaya Group of Institutions and niece of the first Finance Minister of India, Sri R.K. Shanmugam Chetty. Please come on to the stage. Due to unavoidable situations, Sri E. Palaniswamy, Chairman, Armstrong Group of Companies, couldn't join us today. And Sri M. Raja, MD Mandeep Marbles, is on his way. Now, I request Professor Kanaka Sabapatiji to address the gathering. Sir, please.
Respected Priyam Madam, respected and dear Priyam Gandhi Mody, respected elders, brothers and sisters, I am extremely happy today to launch this very important work. What if there was no Congress? Certainly our nation would have been a much better place, much more prosperous. More and more divine. So to present this historically, we have one of the best-selling authors, young authors in our country, Madam Priyam Gandhi, with us today. You know, it's a well-researched book. She has taken pains to collect a lot of details and then she is presenting the book today to us. So both the organizations, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Research Foundation and the Verandah Club, we are very happy to launch this important book. If we see the history of the Congress, we can understand the impact of it on our civilization. You know, Bharat is not just another country, it's a civilization, an ancient civilization, perhaps the longest living civilization in the entire world. So this party, which was promoted by foreigners, still being run by a foreigner, Italian, is unfortunately has become part of our history. So it's highly unfortunate. If we begin from independence, Jawaharlal Nehru, you know, we can understand its impact. Whether we take Nehruvian socialism or what they call Nehruvian consensus. In fact, it was created by one Rajini Kothari after his death. I understand it's a myth. This Nehruvian socialism is a complete failure. I am an economics teacher. You know, we have studied this in detail. And if we see this Nehruvian socialism, it has proved to be dangerous for our country. Bharat is a civilizational state. So this Nehruvian socialism has caused great damage, and even today it's causing great damage. And this principle of non-alignment, completely wrong. We should have put our nation first. Nation-centric approach should have been our top priority when we deal with the global, rest of the world at the global level. So this non-alignment was completely wrong. And if we take democracy, with which they always associate Nehru was not a Democrat at all. In fact, he was the one who brought the first amendment, and later he banned, as Ranganathan would often say, list some 200 works. And he was a dynast, which many of us may not know, like Karnanidhi of Tamil Nadu, like Lalu Prasad Yadav of Bihar, like Mamata Banerjee of West Bengal. Nehru was a dynast, complete dynast. I was going through some of the works relating to it. And I came to know from Kuldeep Nayar's work. Kuldeep Nayar had written a work, Beyond the Lines, in which he quotes Shastri, Lal Bahadur Shastri. In fact, Lal Bahadur Shastri became a prime minister by accident. You can say like that, by accident. Otherwise, Nehru wanted his daughter Indira Gandhi to succeed him. In fact, Shastri told Kuldeep Nayar that Nehru would like to see Indira Gandhi as his political heir. So this was the position of Nehru. And not only that, I came to know that after the death of Lal Bahadur Shastri, Nehru was not willing to provide a place for his samadhi. Only after Lalita Shastri said she would go fast unto death if a place was not provided to her late husband. You know, Nehru agreed to provide a place for samadhi. Can we believe it? So it is not Sonia Gandhi alone who denied entry of the mortal remains of late P.V. Narasimha Rao into the Congress headquarters. Even before that, much more before that, Nehru himself did it. So this is the history of the Congress that we have to know. So for the last 70-75 years, they have created a history, long narrative, that Nehru was a great man, Congress was a great party and all. Of course, now it is slowly collapsing, with the entry of our popular leader Rahul Gandhi. But we have to know the true history of Congress. This Congress, beginning from Nehru, was almost, can we say, anti-nationalist?
Yes.
Anti-national party. Completely anti-Hindu party, that we can say. I remember the words of Hindu Mahasabha leader N.B. Kare. Some people relate it to Nehru's own words, but there is a controversy. So N.P. Kare, Hindu Mahasabha leader, is reported to have described Nehru as like this, I quote, Nehru was an English by education, Muslim by culture, and Hindu by an accident of birth. So this aptly describes Nehru. So this is how we have had our leader who ruled this country for about 17-18 years. So during the last 75 years, 76 years now, most of the time, for 53 years, Congress has been ruling, that too most of the time by the Nehru-Gandhi family. So Nehru-Gandhi family is completely a dynastic family. We all know that for this pseudo-secularism, Nehru is the main person. We know some of the incidents which happened during Nehru's time, when Sardar Patel wanted to build this Somnath temple. Unfortunately, you could not survive to see it. Then later K.M. Munshi took it up. So when Munshi asked Nehru to, help him, he almost refused. He refused. And he said, I quote, I don't like you are trying to restore Somnath. Nehru's words to K.M. Munshi. I don't like you are trying to restore Somnath. It is Hindu revivalism. Can we believe it? This is a Hindu country. This is a Hindu nation. We have been here for the last at least some 7,000, 8,000 years, even much more. And our temples are our material pieces with which we relate to our culture, our dharma, Sanatana dharma. But rebuilding a temple, a great temple that too, is Hindu revivalism for the first Prime Minister of this country. Can we believe this? So this is what happened. And later, when Dr. Rajendra Prasad was invited to inaugurate this Somnath temple, Nehru wrote a letter saying, I confess that I don't like the idea of your associating with a spectacular opening of the Somnath temple. So this is how he goes. He did not like the idea of building Somnath temple. So this is Nehru for us. I remember as a person, as an academic associated with field level work in different parts of our country, particularly the economic centers, we realized that it is the traditional Hindu beliefs, it is the traditional approaches of Indians that is responsible for the economic background of this country. Today, within a period of 70-75 years, in spite of the Congress ruling it for more than 50 years, we are emerging as a great economic power because of our people. By nature, Indians are saving oriented. By nature, Indians are entrepreneurial. By nature, Indians always try to create something. So this is the reason why we are emerging as a nation. But for about 50 years initially, say, almost 60-65 years, we were not allowed to do it on our own. Our initiatives were curtailed by the so-called socialistic approaches of Nehru. And as a result, India suffered a lot in 1990-91. We all know that India was not even able to pay for its imports, petroleum imports. We had to pledge our gold with the Bank of England. This is due to the socialistic approaches of the Congress. In fact, Mahatma Gandhi, before independence, for the first time in 1930s, some of you may be knowing, he wrote a letter to Nehru saying that after independence, what kind of economic policies we are going to adopt. We have to discuss about it. Because our economic policies should be based on our Indian realities. But Nehru did not respond. Then before independence, I think 1 or 1.5 years before that, if I remember right, 1944 or 45, again reminded Nehru saying that we have to initiate a discussion. If you don't respond, then I will be writing about it in my Harijan publication. Nehru then gave a telegram to him asking him, Babu, let us not discuss about it right now, we will see. That discussion never took place because Mahatma Gandhi died after a few months of independence. So because of this, India suffered economically. Otherwise, this is a highly potential nation. We see it in front of us today. There was Corona in March 2020. Prime Minister gives an appeal to people in April 2020. At that time, we did not have any PPE kits. In a period of just 9 months, we become self-sufficient. 10th, 11th month, we start exporting to other countries. Today, we are the second largest manufacturers of PPE kits. So we have inbuilt abilities with us. By nature, we have enormous capacity as a nation. Our people are hardworking, always entrepreneurial-minded people. But this was suppressed because of the Congress, particularly because of Nehru. So this is the history of the Congress that we should know. So all the major principles of Nehruvian Congress, whether it was his secularism, whether it was his non-alignment policy, or socialistic approach, have proved to be damages to our country. So it is high time that we know the history of Congress, particularly in Tamil Nadu. I was speaking with her because Tamil Nadu is one state which is highly religious, which have a very good background that is part and parcel of larger Hindu culture. North and South have always remained as brothers and sisters. The Bhakti movement started here some 1,000 years back. Always there is connection. Always in our texts written 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years back, we always connect Himalaya with Kanyakumari. But unfortunately, due to the impact of missionaries, which was taken up later by EVR and his legal hairs, DMK, DK, now there is wrong narrative in Tamil Nadu. We still feel that Congress is a party with great background. This we have to, particularly the educated allied sections like us, we have to understand this and we have to explain this to the people. Unfortunately, before the last assembly elections, there was survey across the country. between Mody and Rahul, who would you choose? There were only two states which chose Rahul Gandhi, one Kerala, second one Tamil Nadu. Can you believe it? Both highly educated states. This is because of the wrong narratives that are there in place. But largely now, that won't be there because nobody believes, even congressmen would not believe that Rahul Gandhi would become the Prime Minister. Congress would become the largest party in the country. No chance at all. That problem is not there today. But we have to understand the history of the Congress, what damage has it done to the great Hindu civilization. A civilization which has thousands of years of history. A civilization that was the topmost economic power for at least 5,000 and more years, as far as we know. So we have a civilization that remained as a Vishwa Guru to the rest of the world for several centuries together. So it is time for us to reclaim our civilization from a party like Congress in Tamil Nadu, from a party like Congress's alliance partner DMK. So it is high time. In that connection, we are very, very happy to have one of the best minds of our country today, a young mind, Madam Priyam Gandhi Mody with us today. I don't want to take much time. So she will be presenting to us about her work, and then we may have discussion time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Professor Kanakasabhabadi sir to felicitate the author. I also request Srimati Prema Rao ma'am to felicitate the author.
Ma'am. Thank you, sir.
The moment we have all been waiting for has arrived. I now kindly request Professor Kanakasabhabadi sir to do the honors and officially unveil What If There Was No Congress, the Uncensored History of Indian Independence. I request our Vice Marshal Vijay Kumar retired and Prema Rao ma'am to receive the book.
கொஞ்சம் சென்டர் பண்ணிக்க சார் பார்த்து கால் உள்ள வச்சுக்கோ.
மேம் இங்கே பாருங்க.
Now we have an engaging dialogue between author Srimati Priyam Gandhi Mody ji and S. Jagannathan, founder of the Verandah Club, delving into the depths of the book, What If There Was No Congress, the Uncensored History of Independent India.
very good evening to one and all. Thank you for coming and hope you have a wonderful evening ahead. We have with us best-selling author, an ace political communication expert, Srimati Priyam Gandhi Mody ji. She is a very well-accomplished author, and this is her fourth book that is being launched here. Congratulations, madam, on your fourth book.
Thank you for having me, and thank you everybody for coming. Very grateful.
The inspiration had come from Honorable Prime Minister Mody ji's address in the winter session in February 2022, when he raised a very pertinent question: what if there was no Congress in India? A thought, perhaps a sentiment echoed by none other than Mahatma Gandhi ji, who wrote a letter himself in 1948, just 3 days before his assassination, where he suggested that the Congress be disbanded. Because his premise being Congress in the current form had outlived its use and purpose. The author extensively deals with clarity on the origin of the Congress party in India and how it was kept alive by a few congressmen with vested interests and proximity to the British Raj. The book has about 280 pages, out of which 20 pages don't have references. Meaning 93% of the book has got 3 to 4 references each page has got to historical facts. And once again, congratulations on the way you have put in, they written the book, ma'am, in a very lucid manner, and it's a very easy read and unputdownable to say the least.
Thank you. I'm very humbly accepting your very kind words.
I really enjoyed reading the book.
Thank you
I
so
finished
much.
it in 3 to 4 days.
This is music to an author's ears.
I shall start this interaction by asking some interesting questions, and I'm certain that all of you would be amused by the fascinating observations and startling revelations. Could you please elaborate the great Congress blunder of 1939 and how Patel was repeatedly sidelined?
So several times the choice for the Congress party leadership and senior members repeatedly was Sardar Patel. Sardar Patel was truly the man who ran the party. He collected the funds, he distributed the funds, he knew how to get somebody elected from where. So he knew which businessman to go to, when to go to. Sardar Patel was the man who did it all. Unfortunately, he was a true Gandhian. And every time he wanted to head the Congress, Gandhiji would either say that, okay, I'll support you, and then withdraw the support at the very end, or he would call him and he would say, "Is baar Pandit ji ko ban jane dijiye, agli baar aap baniye." So unfortunately, the fact that he was principled and the fact that he was a Gandhian was, I think, abused and in favor of Pandit Nehru.
It was done over 3 times.
3 times.
And he secured all of the times he secured more votes than Nehru.
Yes. Oh, yes. He secured more votes than Nehru. And he had to give it up to Panditji. In fact, there was this one time where Gandhiji himself was contested and he transferred his votes to Panditji. So it was absolute injustice, but of course the laws for dynasts work differently.
Also tell about the role of revolutionaries within the Congress party in achieving success in the freedom movement and the events that unfolded thereafter. Second World War, in my view, is a result of unintended consequences.
Yes. So, alright, so Mahatma Gandhi was also the chief recruiting officer for the British to recruit Indians for the Imperial Army to fight the war for them. Mahatma Gandhi was willing and had committed to the Viceroy then that he will support in recruiting Indians. Okay. Now at that point, everybody who wanted to join the freedom struggle inherently joined the Congress. Now there were 2 sections of the Congress. There was this Pandit Nehru / Mahatma Gandhi section, and then there was this Subhash Chandra Bose revolutionary section, who believed that non-violence is not going to get us freedom. More so like what Shri Krishna believes, that you have to fight the war. right? You have to fight the war of dharma. If you just give up your weapons and expect to win, that's not going to happen. So the revolutionary section led by Bose, the Lal Bal Pal, inspired by Swami Vivekananda, inspired by teachings of and lives of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. It is this section that really got down to the streets and fought violently against the British. This is what really scared the British. Now, let's remember that in the Second World War, Panditji said, okay, we will not let you recruit any more Indians, and against this we will carry out our non-violent civil disobedience movement. Britishers said, sabko jail mein dalo. So they picked up all the senior leaders of the Congress, the Nehruvian leaders, and jailed them. Now what this did was that the only people who remained out of jail were the revolutionaries. So the civil disobedience movement, which was supposed to be a non-violent movement, became a violent movement. To stop that violence, Gandhiji had to fast and say that this movement which I have only created but has become violent, now I'm going to fast, so you stop this violence. But that scared the British because they realized that if this news spreads to the US or the other parts of the world, that they are not able to control their colony, it's going to have a very severe reputational impact. And that's when they really started thinking about an exit and protecting their strategic interests if they have to make an exit.
Very interesting. Oh, what about the monumental mistake of Nehru in 1946, handling of the partition and also playing into the hands of Jinnah, who was very, very wily?
So, my belief about partition is that we have given away too much of our land and it was done too hurriedly. We could have really settled for giving a matchbox-sized Pakistan. There are records where Jinnah has said that he's willing to accept even a matchbox-sized Pakistan. Okay, A, we did not negotiate for that. B, as soon as Mountbatten came, the last Viceroy and first Governor General of Independent India, the moment he came, the first meeting he had was with Pandit Nehru. It was a 3-hour meeting. In those 3 hours, Pandit Nehru was fully smitten by the Mountbatten family. But on the other hand, Mountbatten got to know that Panditji, these are the words that Mountbatten has used, that Pandit Nehru is gossipy and malicious about his colleagues. This gossip that he shared about his Congress colleagues was used by the British, was used by Mountbatten to convince the other Congress leaders, and to tweak their, judgments about accepting partition or accepting certain decisions about Kashmir. So that is one. Second takeaway that Mountbatten had from that first meeting with Pandit Nehru was that he convinced Pandit Nehru that Mahatma Gandhi is an unrealistic politician and that he must be kept away from all freedom movement and independence and partition talks if they had to go somewhere. Nehru, completely convinced, pushed Mahatma Gandhi on the sidelines. We went to Shimla, we decided the full partition plan, and finally, like a rubber stamp, Mahatma Gandhi came to meet Mountbatten. And very interestingly, when he came to meet Mountbatten to give his consent for partition, he came in his loincloth. He wrote on a piece of paper, "आज मेरा मौन व्रत है, लेकिन आप भी नहीं चाहोगे कि आज मैं कुछ बोलूं." So he knew that he was pushed to the side by Panditji, but he didn't really know what else to do at that point in time.
Very sad how we have been compromised, and very well you brought out how the candidly you brought about how the relationship which Mountbatten had with, Nehru had with the Mountbattens, and the profound impact that we are seeing today.
So interestingly, it's not just, it was an entire axis. So even Mountbatten's main officer, even he was a regular at the Nehru household breakfast table.
Campbell.
Yes. he formed a close friendship with Indira. So he would convince Indira, Mrs. Mountbatten would convince Nehru, and the women would keep playing in his mind. You see, there was an entire axis that was created.
Very sad. Post partition or midway through the partition, the patriotic role of Patel, however more he might have been sidelined, he took a very nationalistic view, impartial view, and went about doing his karmic duty assigned to him. What about the role of Patel in integrating the princely states? And in the book, there is a very nice story on how the king of Junagadh took off in his plane with the dogs and all, 150 dogs and all that.
He left his wife and took
The dogs. So highlight on the how Kashmir was, because there are so many layers to the Kashmir.
Yeah. So before I start this, let us be clear that Panditji had written in letters to then imperial leaders that he was, and as early as 1946 actually, that according to him, and this was written to Cripps by Nehru in 1946, that according to him, independence would mean that this land would be divided into several parts, balkanized. One part would be India, one part would be Pakistan. The bigger princely states would run as independent nations like Kashmir, Hyderabad, etc. And smaller princely states would make clusters, and those clusters could become other independent nations. So this full Bharat Bhumi would become completely balkanized into multiple nations, and this is the proposal that Panditji gave to Cripps. That this is how I propose you should give us independence. So this is where his thinking
And
was.
he was very comfortable in parting away.
Absolutely. See, there are territories that we should have retained. Today, the Congress party, for decades, they have continued this narrative that Panditji was a great statesman and there is no other statesman like him born into this land. Now, let us understand the reality of what happened in 1947. Northwest Frontier Province was a Congress province.
Yes.
Okay, very, very strategic province. It gives India access to the very important, Middle Asia, little bit to the Middle East. Very, very important, parts to Afghanistan. Very, very important province. There were Congress. There was minority population. There was a Congress government. If rules had been followed, then elected representatives, which were Congress representatives, they would have easily elected and said, we want to join the Indian Union. But just so that the British could protect their strategic interests and get Northwest Frontier Province for Pakistan, Nehru and Mahatma Gandhi changed the rule and introduced the plebiscite. First time plebiscite was introduced over there. And we gave away Northwest Frontier Province on a platter without even contesting to Pakistan.
Absolutely. Well, one thing where I have to give a big round of applause to you is back and forth the chronology. 1939, 46, so many years and dates are there, and you have not confused the reader anywhere about the events.
But I want to go back on Sardar Patel actually. There's another story that I want to say about Sardar Patel, and this is very interesting. Only a little bit of that is there in the book. So when Kashmir accession was delayed, and once again because Nehru had put conditions that you free Sheikh Abdullah, and only then will I accept Maharaja Hari Singh's accession and all of that, that delayed accession. The British had prepared the tribals to invade,
Yes.
okay, and take over the land in Kashmir. Sardar Patel got a whiff of that. कि ये लोग ने ये तैयारी की. Now what Sardar Patel did is through khufia letters spoke to the Maharaja of Patiala, Yadavinder Singh. Okay? Because after partition, the main railway lines went to Pakistan, the main roads went to Pakistan. The only thing that would connect Kashmir to Indian land was this very rough road through Patiala or this one Srinagar airstrip that the Maharaja used to use for his personal use. So Sardar Patel realized that if the Kabalis come, they will come for the airstrip, because that is the only way we can send our defense, army, supplies, etc. So he sent letters to the Maharaja of Patiala that you send guns and you send men with guns in supply trucks before it starts snowing to protect the airstrip and the airfield, the Srinagar airfield. So Yadavendra Singh sent some men and sent lots of guns in supply ration trucks through that rough road. In fact, when they reached Kashmir, Maharaja Hari Singh said to the men, "You guys can't go back, you all also stay here and fight."
Yes.
And he inducted them into his army to fight for them. Now this is true patriotism, and this is what Sardar Patel orchestrated.
What do you have to say about the Gilgit region, or the British had made it the Gilgit Agency, and the strategic importance to the British, and how and why they wanted Gilgit to be partitioned, and how the British perpetrated the Kashmir issue, and it has been a festering wound in the Indian history until Mody ji revoked the Article 370.
Right. So, as you know, in the Second World War, the whole world was in the race for the atom bomb. It was a nuclear race. Everybody was in the race for the atom bomb. The uranium mining was happening at Xinjiang, which borders your Gilgit-Baltistan border, okay, with Xinjiang in China. Now, there was the plane where the Soviets were testing their atom bombs. What the British had done is they had set up 3 monitoring stations in that area. Okay, these stations would record the frequency and the acoustic, activities, and they would every day. There was a daily output from the stations going to US and UK governments. So it was extremely crucial for the UK to keep that region under their control, even if they gave India independence. See, now this is what I mean, that we could have just restricted Jinnah to a matchbox-sized Pakistan. If we were truly statesmen, we could have negotiated a deal with the British that, okay, you keep the Gilgit-Baltistan area, that is strategic, that is of strategic importance for you. Okay, you keep it on a long lease, like Hong Kong, Taiwan, etc. But in return, you limit Pakistan to a very, very tiny area. Unfortunately, our leaders did not understand that type of geopolitics at that time, and we had no clue until many, many years later that there were these nuclear stations in Pakistan.
Completely naive and
Yes.
sad. A bull in a China shop is a befitting phrase, as it were. The Indo-China border has been the longest border under dispute in the world. Could you elaborate on the inept foreign policy and how the US administration was mishandled by Mr. Nehru?
Yes, a little bit of what Professor just said, that non-alignment was a complete sham. It did not work. And the 1962 war with China really sort of proves it. So first of all, we made these little stands and we call them forward posts. They were not attached to main roads that supplies could get to them in time or nothing. We just said that we have these forward posts, but we were not prepared. We believe that we should not fund supplies for our armies. We should not we should not buy enough weapons, etc. Because we believe in this ahimsa, non-violence. We'll never fight wars. You know, we had that. That was our thinking. Okay. Then China started to do these incursions. You know, the small skirmishes. They started to build roads through Aksai Chin. And that's when we realized we have to fight. So then again, we made mistakes in our forward policy and we instigated them, and that war happened. It was so bad, we were so ill prepared that within a few days, China was about to take over not just Aksai Chin, but also our entire northeast, starting from the Siliguri corridor. And there is proof of this. There is a day where Panditji has written 2 letters to President Kennedy. In the morning, he says to President Kennedy, who was the then US President, that please send us American fighter jets if we really need them to control China behaving like this, etc. On the same day in the evening, he was so desperate, the situation became so bad in a matter of 7-8 hours, he wrote another desperate letter to President Kennedy saying, your jets, American jets, don't even have to fight like our allies, they have to fight like our jets, they have to fight on our behalf, and if they don't immediately start fighting on our behalf, we will lose the entire northeast to China. Then China ने हम पे दया खाया और ceasefire announce किया. Okay, and in exchange for that ceasefire, in exchange for them letting us keep that northeast, they took away so much of Aksai Chin. There is a map in my book that shows exactly how much land the Congress party has given away from Jammu and Kashmir. We have given away over 45% of our land from Jammu and Kashmir to either China or Pakistan. How can the Congress ask the government today, कितना land तुमने दे दिया है? तुमने कितना land दिया है?
For a very long time, Nehru was in denial when asked in the parliament about Aksai Chin until 1962 happened. And at some point also, Pakistan took a very good diplomatic lead with the American administration. And to the extent, I think you mentioned, the American president had a pact with the Pakistanis that without their consent, they would not sell weapons to India.
Yes.
Now over to some economics, ma'am, and how Nehruvian socialist economics that took us down the dwindling spiral. And what do you have to say about this?
So like Professor was also saying, see, there was a time in 1945 that businessmen came together and they proposed a potential economic structure. Nehruji didn't want to talk about it, but businessmen came together and said, we think that this is how our economy should run after independence. This is called the Bombay Plan, which is the details of which are there in my book. Unfortunately, Panditji was so smitten by the Soviets that he just wanted to replicate what they were doing in India. What he did not realize is that everything we had was stolen. We had to build the country from ground up. We didn't have enough resources to distribute equally. We had to build those resources first. Even then, we saw some type of economic growth in his tenure. But what happened in Indiraji's tenure is, it is horrible. She ran the license Raj system like an extortion racket. So basically, every industry, every sector would have so many licenses and so many renewals, and the renewals would have to be done so often to import, to manufacture, to distribute to one state, to hire these many men. There were licenses required for everything. फिर क्या होता था? I'll give you an example. Say for example, there is a textile association. उनके ही लोग जाके रूमर फैलाएंगे, आप ये सेक्टर में 3 नए लाइसेंसेस इंट्रोड्यूस करेंगे. Now that association would panic. They would come saying हमें अपॉइंटमेंट दे दो, हमें अपॉइंटमेंट दे दो. फिर रुका के they would come to Delhi and be granted an appointment with Sanjay ji. And after that, they would say, do one thing, sir, please don't introduce these licenses. उसके सामने ये cash ले लीजिए हमारे पास. And they would bring suitcases and suitcases of cash in exchange for the government to not introduce those licenses. So they ran it like an extortion racket. Very unfortunate. You know, there is this episode when Sanjay Gandhi died. P.K. Nehru asked Rajiv Gandhi that the money that Sanjay had collected, where is it? So Rajiv Gandhi says, कांग्रेस के अलमारियों में से सिर्फ 20 लाख रुपए मिले हैं. So P.K. Nehru asked him, कितने होने चाहिए? So Rajiv says, crores and uncounted crores. So that excuse that they are collecting money for the party is clearly debunked, because the money didn't go to the party. It went in their personal pockets, in the family's pockets. That is exactly what I've been saying. That the family has exploited the resources of the country and taken it away.
In your book, you have mentioned in 1955, around that time, a mill in Bombay or Coimbatore had to have 577 licenses to run, to function.
Yeah.
577, I don't know how many.
And they have to keep renewing something or the other every now and then.
Ma'am, now what in your opinion was Mrs. Gandhi's license Raj? Was it an offshoot of Nehruvian socialism or was it more draconian?
It was definitely more draconian. Definitely more draconian. The inflation at her time stood at 34.5%. 34.5% was inflation during Indira Gandhi's time. And today, even in the UPA second term, it was double digits. So they've not, I mean, it's very clear that they don't know how to manage the economy. In 91 also, when they opened up the economy, they did so big, as against the funds that they were taking from IMF and World Bank. The IMF and World Bank forced us to open up our economy. ये इनका डॉक्टर मनमोहन सिंह और पीवी नरसिम्हा राव का थिंकिंग नहीं था कि हमें इकोनॉमी ओपन अप करनी है. We were made to open up our economy, and in exchange for that, I've written about this in the book also, that Dr. Manmohan Singh got reprimanded in the party meeting for opening it up and moving away from the party's socialist stand. And we all know how Narasimha Rao ji was treated after his death. His body was not allowed to come inside the Congress headquarters. Pranab Mukherjee kept telling Sonia ji that please aane dijiye, the body is outside, waiting for her nod, but she never nodded.
And rightfully today, Honorable Prime Minister has awarded Bharat Ratna to P.V. Narasimha. Any references to the Congress party is incomplete without the references to the grand scams that they have been involved, and also the pseudo-secularism which they practice rigorously. One of an estimate that you have given in your book, the amount or the amount of money that has been looted over the years by the Grand Old Party amounts to 4,80,000 crores or $58 billion US.
So yes, so the UPA era. So I think this is what happened. When people ask what happened in 2014, ऐसा क्या हुआ कि देश का सोच बदला? And I always say that there comes a time for a civilization जब अधर्म इतना बढ़ जाता है, चोरी इतनी बढ़ जाती है, and all that corruption money was, getting diverted into terrorism. It was getting diverted into anti-national activities. There was all of that flow. If you saw the flow of that illegal money, it was getting diverted to all of that. Our children were dying. Our parents were dying. Our people were dying. So that's when I think the civilization woke up. That अब हम ये सहन नहीं करेंगे. And I think that is why Bharatiyas will never bring Congress back to power again. That is why, never.
Wonderful, ma'am. India, that is Bharat, as we speak today, under the able leadership of Sri Narendra Modi ji, has truly transformed in the last 9 years, with over 109 million toilets being built, and we have declared ourselves, and also by the international bodies, as open defecation free country. Not only that, Prime Minister, when he came to power, he brought in the revolutionary, true financial inclusion, Jan Dhan Yojana. He opened 51.14, as we speak, 51.14 crore bank accounts, banking the unbanked people. And that helped proper governance delivery during, subsidy delivery, and also cash direct benefit transfers. And such a foresight, it really worked during the COVID thing. And your third book, previous to No Congress, your third book, Nation to Protect, covers very well the wonderful actions of Modi government during the COVID crisis, the effective COVID handling, and many congratulations to you on that, ma'am. I look forward to do an online session with you on this book. And we have with us today Prime Minister Modi ji leading us. All comes to show that with true political will and with the right intent and honesty, anything is truly possible, and we can become a superpower, and we are in the making. Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed reading your book and wonderful session. Over to you to address the gathering much in detail on the book, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for asking this lovely question.
Yes, of course, of course.
Later books are available for purchase and you can get it autographed from ma'am.
Should I sign this? So can I stand and?
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. A lot of you have come in after we started our discussion, so welcome and thank you for taking the time and joining us today for this very, very important discussion. Also, my heartfelt gratitude to Professor and to Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee Foundation and Jagannathanji and the entire team for putting together such a lovely event and calling such lovely people. I am very, very honored and glad to be here. I am also very emotional today because I am speaking here after a very long time in the land of the Sengal. The land of the Sengal and the land of one of the oldest languages in the world. So I'm very, very emotional about that. You know, for decades, anglicized leadership of the Gandhi-Nehru family. Basically, the British left and they handed over power to another set of British Indian people. These people have driven it into our minds that the Indian heritage is substandard. Indian way of life is substandard. How we eat, substandard. What we eat, substandard. What we wear, substandard. They, over the decades, they have driven it into our minds that what we are is not good enough. But now, I see a change in this thinking. I see this civilizational pride arising, especially in the youth. And it is this civilizational identity and pride that is going to propel us to becoming the number 2 and number 1 economy in the world. Because men and machines are not going to make it. It's the civilizational pride that is going to push us. Alright, moving ahead. So while my book is titled, What If There Was No Congress? Be rest assured, there is no element of fiction in it. It is based on hard facts, it is based on hard truths, and it is a diary of the misdeeds of the Congress party and what they have done to our country for decades and decades and decades. So please, it is not a fictional book. Many more books will be needed like these to correct the narratives that have been systematically made by the Congress ecosystem, the family and their sympathizers. This is just a drop in the ocean. So everybody, all the youngsters here, please write, please talk about this. A lot more collective effort is needed to correct this narrative. Having said that, the way they have systematically made this narrative and made us feel inferior, there is something to learn from them as well. We must also do this as systematically as they have done this. For our efforts to be, to have as much longevity as their efforts did. So we must keep that in mind. Now, in terms of how narratives work, I want to give you an example that is relevant today. The prince goes around the country saying, हमारी मोहब्बत की दुकान है, हमारी पार्टी मोहब्बत की दुकान और आप लोग नफरत फैलाते हैं. He goes around the country saying that. What does that indicate? He indicates that the Congress and its allies are the only political parties who are capable of providing an inclusive governance. This is a monumental lie. There is no bigger lie than this. There have been innumerable instances where his family members and his party have actively engaged in creating discord between communities. I will give examples for this. For instance, in 1977, after the emergency, when Indira Gandhi and the Congress party were thrown out by the country, when they lost the general elections, Sanjay Gandhi promised his mother, हम अगला चुनाव इस मुद्दे पर जीतेंगे, that we will protect Hindus and moderate Sikhs from militant Sikhs. हम इस मुद्दे पर अगला चुनाव जीतेंगे. To ensure that this happened, they interviewed and found भिंडरावाले. अभी प्रॉब्लम क्या हुआ भिंडरावाले का? That he came in, they funded him, he got all the militant tendencies, but he was not demanding Khalistan by himself, that I want Khalistan. That is not a statement he was saying. This was a problem. What did the Congress party do? They also erected Dal Khalsa. They funded Dal Khalsa with the singular purpose of only asking for Khalistan. So भिंडरावाले on one end would say, अगर बीबी मेरी जोली में खालिस्तान डालेगी तो मैं मना नहीं करूंगा. And they hooked him up with Dal Khalsa, who was only demanding Khalistan. This is one instance where they pit one community against another community. Let me give you, before I say that, let me tell you what mentality this is. You know which mentality this is inspired from? This is inspired from the Muslim League mentality. You know, when Muslim League was trying to find its ground in India before independence, they would go from province to province. And especially in the areas where Muslims were in minority, they would spread this narrative that Muslims are in danger from Hindus. This narrative only worked in areas where Muslims were in minority. It did not work in areas where Muslims were in majority because they knew that हमें इधर कोई tension नहीं, हम खुश हैं. Like in the northwest frontier province. So this is Muslim League mentality that the Congress is still inspired by. Now let me continue and give you another example since we are talking about the Muslim League. Do you know Indira Gandhi, immediately after partition, when the country was still healing from the bloodshed and the heartbreak of cutting our country into two, Indira Gandhi as Congress president allied with the Muslim League in Kerala to orchestrate protests to destabilize a democratically elected government by influencing her father to dismiss that government. She allied with the Muslim League. This is their mentality. This is what they want to do. This is what they are still doing by allying with DMK, who says Sanatan ko wipe out kar do. This is still their mentality. It is never going to change. Never. Same thing happened in Northwest Frontier Province. Like I said, we gave away the land. They didn't want to go to Pakistan. They wanted to come to India. But we told them, नहीं plebiscite होगा और हम plebiscite में contest भी नहीं करेंगे. आपको इंडिया ज्वाइन करने का ऑप्शन भी नहीं मिलेगा. आपको पाकिस्तान ही जाना पड़ेगा. This is what I mean. That creating communal discord is how they win power and how they hold on to power. Now, let's move on and let's talk about how the Congress party pitches itself as the custodians of democracy. I don't understand how can a party that brought in something like the dastardly emergency, even talk about protecting democratic rights. How ironic is that? What type of hypocrites do you have to be in order to say these kinds of things? Now, during the emergency, they locked up the media, they arrested most of their political opponents. उससे भी उनका पेट नहीं भरा. They were so insecure that Indira Gandhi mysteriously, again I am repeating this, Indira Gandhi mysteriously held her primary political opponent, Jai Prakash Narayan. She held him in captivity, not in a prison, but in a hospital. What did she do to him? She kept him in an area without ventilation. She would send doctors. Doctors would administer mysterious drugs. Jai Prakash Narayan told his lawyers at that time, and later on again he wrote in a letter to his supporters, that I think I was being poisoned by Indira Gandhi. What type of insecurity and inhumanity is this? This is the inhumanity that is very dangerous, very, very dangerous in the leadership of our country. On the other hand, while she was up to this, her son roamed around with roughnecks and goons all around the country, running programs like the sterilization program. Once again, he pretended like he was this incarceration, this incarnation of God, and that he owned the country. There is an instance that I want to talk about. Once again, this is an episode. He stood at one place in Delhi with his team of gundas and some people from the administration. He stood at that place, there were slums. He said, यहाँ से मुझे सीधा देखूं तो इंडिया गेट दिखना चाहिए और कुछ नहीं. From Turkman Gate he stood and he said, from here I should be able to see India Gate, nothing else. Immediately bulldozers were brought in and the slums were removed, rendering lakhs and lakhs of people homeless. Obviously, protests erupted और उन्होंने ये protest को कैसे quell किया? Violence से. They ordered the police to violently quell these protests. So once again, when we hear this narrative कि आप किसानों पर you're not you're listening to them and you're using violence against them, this that, look at what they have done. So they have no right to talk about how protests should be handled. Anyway, so my final remarks, I'm going to talk about this Dekho Apna Desh Yatra that's going on currently, and then I'm going to end it. So let's circle this all back to what the Congress does today. Rahul Gandhi, instead of being in Parliament as a parliamentarian in the budget session, is on his Dekho Apna Desh Yatra. Where did he start this Yatra number 2 from? From very sensitive regions in the northeast. Why do I mean sensitive? Not just Manipur, but even in Assam. He went to areas where the demography has been changed by the influx of migrants, Muslim migrants, other minority migrants, and these areas have become very sensitive to handle. He took his yatra in those places instead of coming and showing up as a parliamentarian and doing his job. Nobody in the Congress, even the people who are with him with backpacks on the yatra, even they don't know why they are doing this yatra. Nobody knows. What is Nyay? What Nyay are you asking for? Nobody knows. Why? Because the real purpose of the yatra is to create discord in the country a few months before election. That is their game plan. That has always been the game plan. But now the country has understood. and now the country doesn't get swayed by these narratives anymore. And come 2014, unfortunately, unfortunate for a democracy that we will not have an opposition, but they are not even going to have enough seats to be the principal opposition of our country. We have learned that. Thank you. With that, I rest my speech. Jai Hind. Thank you.
Now we open the floor for questions. A kind request, engage us with a lot of questions and less feedbacks and theories. Over to you.
I'm able to read your book, so I'll be able to appreciate when I go through this. But I just want to make 2 points.
Yes, please, please.
See, I'm born in 1949, so I'm 75 years old. In our younger days, around 50s, when we were in the school, the narrative given to us is Gandhiji, by his non-violence, brought us the freedom, and it is through Congress the freedom was achieved. This is the narrative we have been taught over a period of time, and I think till some time back this was the narrative. But to my good luck, I joined a different stream, and I had interacted with a lot of people, I had read a lot, I visited a lot of countries, and now I understand Britishers were forced to give us the freedom because after the Second World War, when they were losing a lot of their troops, they could not anymore afford to govern India. Whatever the forces left in India were thinly spread out. By the time the revolutionaries in India had started off everywhere, one side Gandhiji is doing his job, but people who becoming impatient have started revolutions. And they were attacking and killing the British people, and Britishers had no mood to accept any more bloodshed of their people. So they were looking for a chance to quit. So that's how. So it is not only because of Congress and Gandhi, it is actually because of the revolutionaries, which unfortunately is not written so much. There are so many people who had contributed to it. This is the first point, which I understand now. Second is the Himalayan blunder, 1962. Nehru was not able to take a decision according to what I know. He was told by the air chief at the time, we didn't have a very great air force. We had Kufanis, we had Rapids, subsonic fighter planes. For Chinese, the air force was very much behind. It's only the land forces moving in on the mountains. We could have frightened them by using this fighter aircrafts, doing some strapping and attacking. That would have stopped them in Bomdila or even higher up. Even in Tawang. They came from Tawang to Bomdila and then came down to Arunachal. He could have stopped them long back, they would have got scared. Nehru didn't do. He didn't allow the Air Force to operate. This is the thing I would like to make here, because
Correct.
Air Force was capable of doing it, they were not given a chance.
But I want to add one point here, that the people who Panditji surrounded himself with in 62 were all family and friends. The scary part is that Krishna Menon, our defense minister, was a KGB asset. The KGB has confessed that we were grooming Krishna Menon. So Krishna Menon, who had placed an order for fighter jets from somewhere in Europe, the KGB made him change that order to the Soviets, and the MiG planes did not come on time when we needed them during the 62 China war. The other people who Panditji surrounded himself with at that time for consultations were Vijay Lakshmi Pandit, who was the ambassador, General Kaul, who was Kamala Nehru's cousin, right? Then B.K. Nehru was ambassador to the United States. He didn't allow for any other independent opinions. He only surrounded himself with family and friends, a problem that still exists in the Congress party so many years later.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Let me start on a little lighter note. Yours is a very... It's quite fitting that you have a very interesting middle and a last name. The middle name is what we want to get out of the middle of our psyche. And the last name was our last hope during 2014 election.
It's a very good icebreaker. Whenever I meet somebody new, they ask me about my name and then I ask them which side are you on, then accordingly I tell you what my last name is.
But my question is, was Mr. Nehru prodded by the British to take the Kashmir issue to the United Nations?
Oh yes, absolutely. I have written about this in detail in my book that our armed forces, the feedback that our armed forces were giving is that we will win back the land that these Kabalis have captured and that the Pakistani army is trying to capture. We will win it back. The armed forces told us that. On Christmas, so basically, if you recollect, we took the Kashmir issue to the UN on 1st January 1948. On 25th December, Christmas, just a week before, Mountbatten wrote a letter to Nehru saying, and that letter, the contents are there in my book, saying that if you think that continuing the war is going to end in your favor, you are wrong. This is going to hurt your image as a global statesman. Hence, you should take this issue to the UN. My point is, what difference does it make? You want to save your land or you want to save your reputation as a statesman? But that letter influenced him to go to the UN. The second influence that Mountbatten had on Nehru, we took the matter under a section that allowed for that basically did not allow us to fight back until they provided a resolution. We should have taken it under a section where there is a transgression of our land that is happening, where we could have just fought even before the UN could, give any kind of judgment. But we took it under a dispute of territory. There was no dispute of territory. It was our territory that they came and took over. We took it under the wrong section to the UN. Also, Nehru made Sheikh Abdullah part of the team that went to the UN. Sheikh Abdullah was hobnobbing with the officers in the UN, asking for a independent Jammu and Kashmir instead of talking about India's behalf. So, yeah, too many mistakes.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
The session was very enlightening. So, my maternal grandfather was a congressman all his life. He worked Khadi 7 days a week. So, once I was politically aware, self-aware, I asked him a question on why Congress was, such an anti-nationalist party. So he said, apart from the Nehru clique, most of the other Congress party people were actually pro-Hindi. In fact, Congress was called as a Hindu party at that time of the thing. So what happened? I mean, my question is, why didn't the others wrest the power from the Nehru clique after independence? Why there was no coup within the Congress party?
Actually, some of it I've written about, so I will try to explain it. When Gokhale called Mahatma Gandhi to India from South Africa, at that time, Muhammad Ali Jinnah was a very senior congressman. He was fighting India's case against the British in various courts. He was more senior than Mahatma Gandhi in the Congress party scheme of things. He truly at that time believed that we should be secular, there should be no religion in politics and all of that. And please sir, correct me if I am wrong. Then Mahatma Gandhi came with all his showbazi of Hindutva. He brought in ahimsa, satyagraha, prayer meets at ashrams, various other, kept listening to bhajans, would do his and ऐसे ऐलान करते थे कि independent India will be like Ram Rajya, उसमें राम राज्य चलेगा. That's what made Jinnah and the Muslims insecure. That इतने हिंदुत्ववादी राम राज्य में Muslims के लिए कहाँ जगह है? So basically, first Mahatma Gandhi mainstreamed religion into politics. Second time there was a coup in the Congress party is when Subhash Chandra Bose came in. But again, he was a ferocious, man of steel. He said, "I'll only leave you. What you're going to leave me?" And he went and he he did his own sort of diplomacy and which in fact many people believe that it is his revolutionaries.
It was that which forced
That forced the British, yeah.
troops.
Yes, they were losing lots of
They cannot
troops.
afford. They
Yes.
lost enough in second.
Yes, and the Atlantic Charter that the UK had signed with the US, because the UK was out of money, they signed an Atlantic Charter. By that, the US said, okay, we will give you funds, but you have to free your colonies. So they had to free us, and plus the violence that Bose was orchestrating. So that's why they left. So that's the point. The people who remained in the Congress, the Panditji and Mahatma Gandhi said, who eventually ended up running the country, they really didn't get us the freedom. They just enjoyed the post of power.
Hi, and congratulations on your fourth book, and wishes for many more. My question is, when we talk about Nehru and Gandhi, yeah, there were too many wrong narrations that we have been fed all these years, and I don't know, until now it's continuing, not fully to the extent that you have exploited. But there is one grey area where people talk about Nehru giving, dams, infrastructure, or PSUs, and a lot of good things also on the other side. What is your take on that, and how do you narrate it along with the negatives that he has already?
Yes, so you are right. He gave us DRDO, he gave us AIMS, he gave us IITs, he gave us some other PSUs. Why? Nehru himself, sir, I think had said that I am the last Englishman to rule India. As the last Englishman, the expectation would be that you would copy what the West is doing, you would copy what the Soviets are doing, and try to impress them because they are your masters. That's what he tried to do. He copied these concepts from them, but was only able to start one institution, if at all. Right? So, but having said that, let me also say, IIT बनाने से क्या फायदा अगर आप primary education provide नहीं कर पा रहे हो? Are you only making an IIT for your rich friends who are able to go to private schools and then go to IIT and then brain होके abroad चले गए? Right? You did not provide, and I have this with facts that in our 5-year plan we had set a deadline of 61 to have a network of primary education all around the country. We missed that deadline. फिर एक conference बुलाई. अब क्या करें? And in that conference, they realized that to set up this network of primary education schools, we will need at that time 330 crore rupees. They were not willing to give that money for this cause. So then Panditji said, सब लोग आप अपने अपने हिसाब से अपने अपने गांव में कर लो. So places like Coimbatore, places that have educated people, that had educated people even then who understood the value of primary education, they sort of crowdfunded and got good schools, got good teachers, sent their kids to school. But there are many places in the country who didn't realize the value of education, and they remain very weak. Consistently, consecutive Congress governments have made no effort in strengthening primary education. This, I think, is a monster that is going to come to bite our country very, very soon if nothing is done about this, because this is our largest growing demographic and we really need to take care of it. Right, Professor Sir?
Ma'am, here.
Yes.
What I understand from the discussion and from the way it's being presented, that it primarily the book, what the process says, that what are the commissions and omissions of Congress in general and the Nehru family. But going literally by the topic, what if there was no Congress? People like us, what we understand by going by today's political scenario, that BJP is there and Congress, which was a national party, is dwindling. And if we connect this with the post-independence period, what it appears is, other than communism, was there any national level activity? Because the country was new after the British, and the regional parties were not powerful to form a coalition. So if the Congress was not there, other than communism, what was the political scenario?
The revolutionaries. If the revolutionaries had formed a political party, we would have avoided a lot of mistakes that have been made. That's number one. Number two, even though the title is this, in my book I've made an attempt that today when, especially the youth, when they read news, they read, the things about Manipur, they read things about China, they read things about Khalistan case, Canada mein idhar attack kiya hai, वगैरह वगैरह. They don't have any historical context. That why these issues and how these issues have sort of cropped up. So this book provides a historical context to most current affairs issues which are still live wires for us as a country.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you everyone for being so patient. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
It was a nice interactive session, and we would like to read the book. And in fact, my daughter who has come here, she said, I want to read the book, your autograph.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And yes, please. I hope you like it. And please, I give you my email address, give me feedback. I really enjoy reading your feedback. Yes, thank you.
My question is, you talked about Jayaprakash Narayanji, right? About the isolation and all that.
Yeah.
Is it true that Lal Bahadur Shastri also was weeded out with the same kind of thing? One. Second, if so, what was the reason?
I've not written about it, sir, in my book. There's lots of speculation.
Okay.
So once I know exactly what it is, I'll write another one.
And I would also like to know what could be the reason. No?
Insecurity. They
didn't want political opposition to thrive.
Okay. Okay. Second question is Nehru? I mean, he had his own personal weaknesses, right? We all know about it. Was it overwhelming his statesmanship, or was he not?
He was absolutely not. I mean, look at what Mountbatten's daughter, Pamela Hicks, has written in her book. That, and she's given interviews also, I think, to Karan Thapar. She has said that every time there was a challenging situation where Panditji needed to be convinced, the Viceroy would tell his wife that please see how you can convince Panditji about Kashmir, see how you can convince Panditji about partition. She was used as a, like a peta, like a chess piece.
Okay,
so what kind of statesman is this who gets influenced by a chess piece?
Okay.
In fact, in your book, it's there that every night 2 a.m. Nehruji used to write letters to Edwina.
Yes, he was that involved, and she was just using him to convince him about Kashmir and partition.
Too interesting.
Yeah. Thank you. Are we good?
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. It was a wonderful session. Now I request Dharanendra Momaya ji to present the book Why Bharat Matters by our Honorable Foreign Affairs Minister Sri S. Jaishankar as a memento to the guests.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. As we draw this event to a close, we express our gratitude with a heartfelt vote of thanks by N. Saravana Kumar, Director, the Verandah.
Namaste to everyone. On behalf of Verandah Club, I extend my grateful, heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for gracing us with presence at this memorable book launch. We are immensely honored to have had the opportunity to celebrate the launch of What If There Was No Congress with such a distinguished audience. First and foremost, our sincere appreciation goes to Ms. Priyam Gandhi Mody for entrusting us with the privilege of introducing this remarkable piece of history to the world. Your dedication, passion and creativity have undoubtedly left an indelible mark on the Indian history landscape. We would like to express our gratitude to Shama Prasad Mukherjee Research Foundation, its secretary and trustee, and our chairman, Professor Verandah ji, and chairman of SPMRF, Anil Ganguli ji, for giving us this opportunity to organize this book launch. A special thanks to Kongunadu and Ratnam Institute students and faculty. Thanks to our media partner, Dinamala, and Grant Regions Management and staff. To our esteemed guests, your presence here today signifies your support for Bharatiya Sanskriti. Thank you once again for being a part of this special occasion. We look forward to your continued support. We will see you in our next program very soon, probably in April with the Kongu Tamil Sangama. In between, we will be having a couple of other book launches also. I request you to continue this support to us. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Attention participants, the books are available for sale and the author will be